I had occasion to drive up to Sonoma County this past Friday morning. I grew up there, so it was a familiar drive. We were in the midst of the first significant rains of the season, but it was a gentle rain. The kind of rain I remember growing up there, the kind of rain I encountered when I first learned to drive. Passing through the hills, I saw reminders of the devastation of the last few years. Burn scars, skeletons of trees. There was so much devastation that has happened there because of fires. It seems just remarkable to me that it was only 4 years ago that the Tubbs fire tore through that area, causing so much destruction and loss of life. It was the glass fire last year. The early fall has been a difficult time up there for the last many years. It was wet this day on Friday, but I found myself remembering how startling it was when I was driving up there a year ago at the end of October, and how absolutely bone dry everything was. I kept saying, it's not supposed to be this dry. The grasslands were weary. The trees were just sagging, tired, dry, in desperate need of water. It wasn't what I was used to in these lands growing up. Friday, I drove through gentle rains, but of late, that has not been the norm. In today's gospel, we hear the story of Jesus and Bartimaeus. It's the very next story after the one we heard last week about James and John looking for places of honor in Jesus' glory. It's the last story we hear before Jesus reaches Jerusalem and that final week of his life. It's at the end of a chapter where we've had a whole series of encounters between people and Jesus. People who were wanting something from Jesus. The rich young man, James and John, people bringing children to be blessed. And throughout the encounters, the disciples, the followers of Jesus were there, and they were present and often with crowds. And just like we've seen so many times in the Gospel of Mark, they tend to get it wrong. In today's encounter, we see once again someone who wants to engage Jesus. Bartimaeus was trying to get Jesus' attention, a beggar sitting by the side of the road as they left for that final leg of the journey to Jerusalem. And once again, we have the disciples, the followers, the crowds getting it wrong. Bartimaeus cries out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." He's asking Jesus for mercy, and the crowd of Jesus' followers roars, "Be quiet!" But he wasn't. Bartimaeus yelled even louder. "Be quiet," they kept saying. And in the midst of the uproar, Jesus stopped. He stood still, he listened. He heard Bartimaeus and told the crowd to call him near. Not to quiet him, but to tell him to come. So of course, now the crowd says, "Go, Bartimaeus." They encourage him. "Have courage, he's yelling for you. He's calling you." And what happens is remarkable. With the exact same words that Jesus used with James and John, he asks Bartimaeus, "What do you desire from me?" And unlike James and John, who were looking for honor and glory, the son of Timaeus, whose name actually means prized, honored, this son of honor asks for sight. He wants to be able to see. Bartimaeus, the blind beggar who let go even his cloak to go to Jesus, asks for sight, not for riches, not for glory, simply for something he needed. Jesus responds that his faith has given him sight. And Bartimaeus gains his sight and follows Jesus on the way. He wasn't asking for riches. He wasn't asking for glory. He simply wanted sight, sight that then allowed him to be a follower of Jesus. What struck me most in this final story on the road to Jerusalem was how wrong the crowds, the followers of Jesus, got it. They were actually trying to shout down someone who wanted to encounter Jesus. They were shouting down, they were trying to silence someone who desired healing, someone who wanted to name for Jesus what would bring them to wholeness, and then to ask for that deep desire. Jesus, who has already told the disciples that the last will be first. Jesus, who with eyes of love told the rich young man to sell everything that he had and give it to the poor. Jesus, who told James and John that it is in service that we become great. The crowd of Jesus' followers was trying to silence a beggar asking for mercy. It took Jesus stopping, being still, hearing Bartimaeus, and then telling the crowd to say something different, that the crowd stopped trying to shout down Bartimaeus. And I find myself wondering how often we followers of Jesus do the same in this day. How often do we shout down, however gently, those who are simply asking for mercy? How often do we get in the way of someone having an encounter with Jesus? Unlike last Friday, today the rain pours. There are people this day sitting by the side of the road, drenched by rain. There are people who simply desire to be able to name what it is they need as rain soaks their lives. And it's not just folks sitting by the side of the road. It might be that lonely person near where you live. It might be that family juggling work, bills, childcare, and the general demands of life. It might be you having things that you want to bring to Jesus to name, but feel unworthy, feeling shouted down by messages that you've received over the years. It might be that person struggling with grief. It might be folks from many, many walks of life trying desperately to get the systems that they live in to notice them, and to attend to their dignity. It might be like Sonoma County these past many years, a creation groaning with drought, flood, fire, and storm, a creation shouting to be heard, a creation trying with its unspoken voice to make its needs known, a creation shouting for mercy to have its needs attended. Bartimaeus is here among us. Are we stopping? Are we standing still? Are we who are Jesus' hands and feet in the world this day, are we listening? Are we asking, what is it that you desire? What is it that you need? Or are we falling into shouting and silencing? Jesus doesn't rebuke his followers. He simply asks them to call Bartimaeus near. And he shows the crowd what it means to serve, how to respond to a request for mercy, how to listen to someone's desire for their life, and how to offer healing. Jesus' invitation to us today as part of the crowd of his followers is to stop, listen, and invite. Listen to the requests for mercy. Invite people to name what they need. Respond in love to that request. And most especially, to be careful that we're not shouting down when we should be inviting someone to come near Jesus' mercy and love. Amen.